it's a little emotional for me, but I'll say this, that I hear many parents talk about the time that they lose with their kids. And I've got a 6-year-old at home. And honestly, I've got maybe 6 to 7 years of good time with this boy to focus on his growth, his development. And the mayor's seat is a full-time job. Make no mistake, this is not a 40-hour-a-week job. And I just cannot find myself sacrificing that time with Miles to do this work. This work is important, but first and foremost, I'm a father, I'm a husband, and then I'm a mayor. And that's what it comes down to. My family's very important to me, my boy's very important to me, and again, I just don't feel like I can sacrifice this time with him. Yeah, I'm not going to seek re-election in 2024. I'm not going anywhere. My business is here, my family's here. We moved home for a reason, and we're happy with what we're doing, and we'll stick around, so I'm not going anywhere.
Are you going to, in some way, remain in politics and remain in, city activities?
I mean, I will remain in city activities. I don't necessarily see a path right now politically for my involvement. Again, we've been around and we're going to stay around. So we're going to, when we first moved home and when I ran for mayor back then and didn't win, we stayed involved. We created projects. We did some quality of life things. We started film festivals, other events that tried to contribute to the quality of life here of the city. And we'll continue to do that. We are very community-minded people. I often reflect on my purpose in life, and it very much is to contribute to the community in a meaningful and lasting way, regardless of whether I'm as a mayor or if I'm actively working in my community as a community activist or highlighting issues in the community that can be solved or finding opportunities to solve those problems. I've got a very good handhold on where the city's going, where the city should be going. Again, today even said it, we've created solid plans to move forward. And it shouldn't be rocket science to follow those plans. But again, I point to the real need for a professional manager to manage this organization. The city of Plattsburgh needs a city manager. You would not rely on happenstance to find somebody who can do this work. It really does require strong business background and somebody who has that kind of public-facing persona that can really be the cheerleader for our community, as well as somebody who has the experience of managing this kind of organization. In a regular election cycle, you never know who you're going to get. You just don't. You never know who you're going to get. And I just point to my own experience from a business perspective and my experience sitting in this seat and say, fundamentally, it really does require an expert. Somebody who can manage the business, somebody who knows who knows how to manage the business, and somebody who can do it well and consistently as well.
Mayor Rosenquest, above and beyond advocating for a city manager, what other initiatives and projects would you like to see completed before you leave office?
The bike-friendly Plattsburgh plan, hands down. We're not going to get all of the parks renewal stuff done, but we're going to get that ball rolling. We still go for grants as we continue to move. We're just getting through another grant cycle this year as well, and so we'll continue to press on the opportunity to fund this through grants. But these are major projects that we like to see. The Court Street and Brinkerhoff Street corridors, we had grant funding for that. That is going to be done this year as well. We talked about Cornelia Street. It's well along the way that we should see that done in 2025. Broad Street, we should see done this year as well. And these are major, not only infrastructure, but quality of life projects that I was elected to do. People ask me, do this, make this change. We want to see progress. This is what progress looks like. And so these are things that I'd like to see done that are slated to be done this year. Moving forward, obviously, coming back to figuring out what we do with our beach. We've got a feasibility study for Sailors Beach, which we're excited to do, because that beach, again, it's tucked away, it's mostly ignored, but it's a great asset for us. And so we'll figure out what we're going to do with that feasibility study. But those are really the major components that I'd like to see done before the end of this year.
Got some other questions, but
Just you mentioned the difficulty of the job and needing a city manager.
Yeah.
Did that weigh in your decision not to run? Was it not enjoyable being mayor because of all those duties?
No, I love being the mayor. I love this job. It's a good fit for me. It's a good fit for my attitude, for my skill set. But again, when I look at the balance between spending time with my boy and the demands of this job, my family's going to weigh out every single time. And it's hard to say, and I do get emotional about it because of how committed I am to this work. But I also know that if I don't take this time with my family, I will regret it. And I don't want to live my life with regrets. And like I said, my boy's going to be 6 one time in his life, but the city of Plattsburgh will always be here. I'm not saying what the future is going to hold in terms of politically, but again, it's always going to be here. There could be a chance to revisit this conversation sometime in the future.
Are you satisfied with what you accomplished during your time as mayor, or do you feel like you're leaving any unfinished business on the table?
I mean, I could always do more. From day one, coming in, knowing that there was going to need to be things that got cleaned up. And there was going to need to be progress made. We've been doing both. We've been cleaning up the budget. We've been controlling our finances. We've been making sure that the consistency of our tax increases, the levy increases, and the tax decreases have been there. We're at the lowest tax rate in the last 10, 12 years. So I'm extremely satisfied with what we've been able to accomplish. Given more time, we accomplish more. But at the end of the day, I'm not dissatisfied with what we've been able to do. I think we could have gotten a lot more done had we not had such a controversial and what we call the opposition caucus on this council. But that's the nature of politics. People have got their own opinions, and they're going to vote the way that they want to vote. But it's just unfortunate because a lot of people that want to see progress also see a lot of unnecessary, what they feel to be unnecessary infighting at the same time, which causes a lot of progress to halt.
When you talk about that controversy, was there frustration there on your part? Did that weigh into this at all?
No, not at all. Again, my decision's based solely on family. I've been dealing with the controversy, the frustration, the opposition for the last 3 years. I've come to understand and even appreciate it. It helps me view things from a different perspective. Even if I don't agree with that perspective, I still get to see and hear what other people are thinking. I'm not surrounding myself with people who are always saying yes. I don't expect people to always say yes. I expect people to be respectful, to do the job that they're elected to do, and do it well. Again, my decision to not run is solely based on Miles.
did Miles say something to you that really triggered it?
Yeah. I spend a lot of time outside of the house. And he knows it. He's aware of it. He sees it. He feels it. He's impacted by it. And so the many conversations I've had with him about, I got to go away for conference this week. Or I'm going to be late. I'm not going to see you to bed tonight. I got to leave early in the morning. I had to leave early this morning. I can't see him up in the morning to get him to school. Again, these are things I do not want to miss out on. So, yeah.
I have one question, actually. So you said that there's a possibility that you may revisit mayorship in the future. Is that something that's still on the table, or?
I'm not going to make any decisions right now. Like I said before, Miles is 6 one time in his life, but the city of Plattsburgh is going to be here. I'm not going anywhere. My family's not going anywhere. Whether I revisit the political life or not, I'll leave that up to the future.
I have some other questions
Yeah.
on a separate topic, so I don't know
I'll
if you
stay
guys
with you for a
wanna-
minute then.
Huh?
I'll stay with you for a minute on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Last night,
Yes.
at the end of the meeting,
Yep.
there was some conversation regarding the redistricting situation. Why is this coming up so late? There's been a lot of criticism about
of course.
bringing it up so late.
Of course. Look, when we first visited this, Councilor Gibbs noted that we should have started that in the process based on the charter. 100% agreed when that was brought up, acknowledged that we were late, and gave very clear explanation why we were delayed. Even with that explanation, the council went ahead and approved the commission. Everybody knew our timeline. Everybody knew where we were at in the process. Everybody knew why we were delaying the process. Our charter, unfortunately, does not take into account New York State's requirement to make adjustments to the census, and then also Clinton County's requirement to redistrict their legislative districts. All of those things had to happen. We had to happen for us to then do our portion because, again, we want to better match the county's districting rather than doing our own work, piggyback on the back of what they're doing. They were delayed as well, or they were a little bit behind. They were not as delayed as we were, but we also knew, because we participated in that process, we knew where they were at in their timeline as well. Again, we knew it. We were late. We said we were late in the beginning. We said why we were going to be late in the beginning. So the whole controversy, sure, I understand the frustration. You know, again, I feel all of these times they're more manufactured than they are really looked at in the more global perspective. But again, and even our charter, like I said last night, our charter does not dictate anything after creating the commission and handing the results over to the council for approval or disapproval. It doesn't say it has to happen. It says we have to create the commission and it has to be presented for consideration. And that was it. That's what we've done. Again, that doesn't stop us from coming back and doing that reapportionment. And it seems that the council wants to do that, and that's fine. But again, I personally don't see much controversy in this, mostly because this was communicated up front where we were at in the timeline and why we were delayed.
So there's several objections from, as you point out, the folks that are typically objecting to things. One is that they disagree with you on the interpretation in the charter. Another one is the makeup of the commission, because it didn't have any Republicans.
Yep.
And I believe there's another objection.
The neighborhoods being cut.
The neighborhoods being cut as they are currently in the proposed
Sure.
redistricting. I take it you are discounting the viability of those objections.
I don't want to say I'm discounting them. I understand them. We reached out to many of the Republicans that we know who are leaders in our community. We either got no's when they're not interested in participating or got nothing back. So it's not like there was no effort. Again, this is a politically agnostic process. Me personally was not involved in the process. I left that to our planning office and their partnerships with Clinton County. Again, I'm not saying the arguments are invalid. All I'm saying is that we've got to look at this more from a global point of view rather than saying this is wrong and this is wrong. Let's figure out what happened that led up to it, and also that folks knew about it. Again, they approved the commission with the people that were put forward. There's got to be some responsibility for people who vote for these things and then turn around and say, well, this was wrong in the first place. Come on, there's got to be some accountability. In terms of the neighborhoods, again, this is one of the reasons why it's politically agnostic, because you get the politicians that say, well, I like this neighborhood in my district. I don't want this neighborhood to move, so I'm going to vote no on this. Well, that's why it's politically agnostic. Politicians do not need to be making these decisions. They need to be based driven by data, which this one was. And once put forward to the council or to the legislative body that needs to approve it or deny it, then the decision gets made. But at the end of the day, again, I understand the concerns, I understand the controversy, but again, this is all outlaid right up front.
not to be flippant or anything, but as you were talking about that and the loyal opposition, what came to my mind, and as I said, not to be flippant, now that you're not running for mayor, do you perhaps think that some of these controversies will fade?
That's a good question. That's a good question. I mean, look, I don't, as much, I will say this, as much work as I've tried to address the controversy, to address the opposition, extend olive branches, extend conversations, even to a point of saying, let's go to mediation, which I've never had to do with any job that I've ever done in my life, extend mediation as an option for resolving some of these conflicts. I don't know. I don't know why it's the case. I've always been open to feedback. I've always been open to having conversations, straightforward, very tough, challenging conversations. My ego is not so tied into hearing negative things about me face to face and dealing with them. I'm a person that loves other people, genuinely loves other people, genuinely cares for other people. I don't necessarily need to have people like me, but when it comes down to it, I want people to be empowered through what we're doing as a group. And if they're not, I'd like to address those things. But again, I feel like I've done everything that I could possibly do to figure out why there's so much opposition. And I would assume that maybe the next person would have a different type of opposition. I don't know. The last mayor and mayors before that have had opposition on council. I don't think that it's unique to Chris Rosenquest. Just as all the complaints about what I'm doing are probably not unique to me either. You know, anybody that is going to sit in this seat as the mayor is going to gain criticism. That's part of the job. Part of the job is to listen to that criticism, not take it personal, and see how you can use that to make some change in the future. That's been my job. So, you know, again, I don't really understand why almost everything is controversial. It doesn't need to be, but that's just how this has been.
I did have one question, actually. Sorry if you may have answered. I was a little late, but obviously, with everything that you've been able to accomplish as mayor of Plattsburgh, do you overall feel satisfied as you're soon going to be walking away? Yeah. From Margaret Street,
yeah, of course. I mean, like, when I first came on, as I said earlier, when I first came on, there was a significant amount of issues that we had to deal with on top of promoting a progressive agenda. The budget instability and figuring out what was actually going on with the budget, not these doom and gloom scenarios that said the city was going to be bankrupt in 20 months. But rather what was the reality of our financial situation, the number of infrastructure issues, the Crate Center falling apart, the Rec Center falling apart, so Margaret Street crumbling, Cornelia Street crumbling, all these issues that had gotten kicked by the can, not just from the last mayor, but from previous administrations going back. These things had to be addressed, and they had to be addressed immediately. They could not be, just really frank, there is no amount I just did not have the ability to look at these issues and say, we'll take care of them later on. They were that emergent. So we had to deal with those things on top of doing parks renewal, multimodal transportation, complete streets, replacing that failed infrastructure, doing things like beach improvement, doing these things more progressive, things that people elected me to do. I feel like over the last 3 years, mind you, I still have a year left, and we've done this in 3 years. I'm very happy with what we've been able to do. You could always use more time to do more, but I'm very happy with what we've done over the last 3 years. Over this next year, we'll keep pushing on completing some of these plans. The bike infrastructure will complete. We'll start phase 1 of the Parks Renewal Project. We'll do Cornelia Street in the next couple of years. Brinkerhoff and Court will be done by the end of this year. And we'll have a lot of plans that are already in play that really, my goal is to create these plans and get them moving with such momentum that it would be kind of foolish to stop.
And this is so fresh, you probably haven't talked to any colleagues. No one's expressed an interest in following you and running for mayor.
Nothing yet.
There's nobody that you would
No.
endorse already.
No, nothing yet. And time comes, if there is somebody out there that I feel would be good for this position, I will endorse them. But I will say that over the next 8 months, I will be pushing for a city manager. I think that's the right thing to do. Considering that nobody has announced that they are running now, they should come into this election cycle knowing that their position could be changed, that the mayor's position could be changed, and I think that's a critical decision to make. And again, if anybody is of the mindset that a $67 million organization needs to be run by a professional, I think that they would understand the benefit of having that type of form of government.